Hey everyone, this is Ms. Gale, and we will be reading Tentacles by Rollin Smith. It is the sequel to Cryptid Hunters, if any of you are interested. As I go through the story and the specific chapters and beginning, I'm going to be discussing some things that are important to look at, and I will be highlighting some things as well. Okay, here we go. Okay. Of course, with the contents, these are all the chapters highlighted and underlined here in blue. Now, you will also be able to click on each one of these and it will take you to that direct chapter. So we're going to go through the cover, the title page, the danger on deck, the epigraph, and the cryptid hunters, and some of the anatomy before we go on to part 1. Okay? All right, so danger on deck. It says Marty reached the deck and took in a deep breath of fresh sea air, which smelled like perfume compared to the greasy galley. The dark sky was moonless, lit by millions of stars. The Colcanthic was anchored. He walked over the rail and looked down at the water. Somewhere beneath the dark water, a giant squid awaited. Tomorrow, if things were going well in the galley, I'll spend the day on deck getting some sun, he thought. Something slammed into his back, and he was falling over the wrong side of the rail. One of his flailing hands managed to snag the edge of the scupper, and he came to a shoulder-wrenching stop. He managed to get his other hand onto the scupper, but his position was still precarious. He tried to pull himself up, but he didn't have enough strength. He began to yell his head off. The sharp edge of the scupper was cutting off the circulation to his fingers. If someone didn't hear him in a minute or so, he was going to drop into the dark sea and never be heard of again. Okay, so what we've learned so far, is the name of the boat, of course. And we have our first character, who's Marty, who we learn is on this boat. And the boat was anchored, but he does start to fall off, right? And here we know that he's going to drop into the sea and he'll never be heard of again, right? We also note that some of his actions, right? So the circulation to his fingers were being cut off. He was yelling his head off, right? And he didn't have enough strength, which is important to note because we're noticing body language here. And one of the big words here is precarious, right? So we might want to write that down because eventually we will have to figure out what this word means, okay? So we're in need of this, all right? All right. Then we have a vocab word here. It's cryptozoology. It's a noun, okay? It's the study of animals such as Sasquatch, the Yeti, the Loch Ness Monster, the Chupacabra, the Kraken, and others whose existence has not been proven scientifically. They are thought to be more than 200 cryptids in existence today, right? So we also need to know what cryptids mean. Right? So that's something that we're going to have to look up as well later. So I would go ahead and make note of that. Moving along. So we have the cryptid hunters. So these are going to be our main characters. Most books do not do this, but this is a very nice little insert for us. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and read that. And I'm going to highlight some things as well. Okay, so we have Marty O'Hara. So that's who we were just introduced to in that little first section. So it's Wolf's nephew, Grace's cousin. So here we have Grace as our second person. Then we have, he's 13 years old, brown hair, green eyes, a foot taller than Grace, talented artist, master chef, scuba diver, mountain climber. His parents, Timothy and Sylvia, the most famous photographer and journalist team in the world, are missing after a terrible helicopter crash in the Amazon rainforest. Okay, now we have Grace Wolf. Okay, this is Wolf's only daughter, although for most of her life she has been thought she was Timothy and Sylvia O'Hara's daughter and Marty's twin sister. That's interesting. Black hair, blue eyes, the color of robin's eggs. Robin as in a bird, robin. Born at Lake Tell in the Congo. She's 12 years old, small for her age, but a foot smarter. That's silly. A foot smarter than Marty, fluent in several languages, habitual journal writer, lockpicker, and a genius. So she's quite skilled. Then we have Luther Percival Smith the Fourth. That's Marty's best friend and former roommate at Omega Opportunity Preparatory School in Switzerland, where they got into a lot of trouble and co-authored graphic novels. Sleeps like a vampire, gangly. So we might have to describe that one too. Does anyone know what that means? Message me in the chat about this. Gangly with wild orange hair, expert computer hacker, and a vivid gamer. Mr. Travis Wolf. He's called Wolf by his friends and foes. Grace's father, Marty's uncle. He's a cryptozoologist, a veterinarian, an oceanographer, and a giant of a man. Just under 7 feet tall. Unruly black hair, bushy black beard, brown eyes. Wears size 15 shoes. Co-founder and owner of E-Wolf with Ted Bronson. His right leg was bitten off by a Molkenbaum as he tried to save his wife, Rose Blackwood. He now wears a high-tech prosthesis invented by Ted Bronson. So prosthesis is like a robotic leg, if we're thinking about that. Okay. Then we have Dr. Noah Blackwood. He's father of Wolf's deceased wife, Rose. Grace's grandfather, environmental superstar, but he is not who he appears to be. Wealthy, powerful, owner of several animal theme parks around the world, also called Noah's Ark. He hunts and breeds endangered animals and cryptids and displays them at his parks. In their prime, he kills the animals, has them stuffed, and stages them in his private diorum. Okay. Then we have Butch McCall. That is Noah Blackwood's henchman. Dangerous, tattooed, tough, expert field biologist. He's more comfortable in the woods than under a roof. Sworn enemy of Travis Wolf, who stole Rose away from him. All right. So we have Bertha Bishop, ex-Army Ranger General. Can kill a person 106 different ways with her bare hands. She is extra large, but solid as a rock. Wolf's head cook, Phil's wife. Phil Bishop, ex-Air Force Colonel. Former combat pilot, Wolf's chief pilot, and Bertha's husband. We have Dr. Laurel Lee, Wolf's cultural anthropologist. Bird-like. That's interesting. Athletic, former circus aerialist. Taught Grace to walk on a high wire to help her focus and overcome her fears. Laurel and Wolf are sweet on each other. Okay. Dr. Ted Bronson, Wolf's closest friend and partner at E-Wolf. Eccentric genius. Inventor. Recluse. Rumored to have not left the Cornest Hunt on Cryptus Island, where he develops his marvelous gadgets in more than 3 years. Theo Sonborn, a cohort of Wolves since the beginning. Shirley, pugnacious, obnoxious, jack of all trades, master of none. Right. And then we have Bo. She's a female bonbo chimpanzee, orphaned and adopted by Wolf years ago in Central Africa. Pals around with PD and Congo. Fond of Luther's orange hair. Sworn enemy of Winkin, Blinkin, and Nod. PD is short for pocket dog. Okay, that's a black haired teacup poodle. Best friends with Bo and does not get along with Congo. Jumps into the pocket upon hearing the word snake. So we know that snake for him is something that he fears. Okay. And the last few, we have Winkin, Blinkin, and Nod. Those are the Wolf's 3 bottled-nosed dolphins who all love teasing Bo, right? And remember, Bo is the chimp, right? Then we have Congo. He's an African gray parrot who belonged to Rose, Grace's mother, when she was in Central Africa. Grace brought him back to Cryptus Island after the adventure of Molkenbaum. And then, of course, Monkey. It's a plush toy resembling a primate. Covered with patches and stitches, its mouth and left eye are missing. Grace has had it since she was a baby. Because of its tattered appearance, Marty refers to it as the Frankenstein monkey, because the cousins, a promise is sealed by giving monkey's arm a squeeze. Okay, so now we have this promise here, so we kind of can think of this as like a pinky swear, and then the Frankenstein monkey, that's kind of funny. And the reason I say that's funny is because when we think of Frankenstein, right, he was put together and he comes back to life, and he has all of these electrodes and things like that. So they're kind of referring to the fact that he's, missing all of these things, and he's got patches and stitches, because Frankenstein is made up of many body parts. So that's something to think about this monkey, because there's going to be a lot of symbolism with him. Okay? All right, so then we have anatomy. This is a great section. So we're talking about a giant squid here, right? So pushing water into rhythmic pulses through a spherical shaped body or mantle, right? And steering by use of called fin. The giant squid is jet propelled. On average, the mantle is 6 feet long. Okay, so we have mantle is 6 feet long. That's important. And it's jet propelled, okay? More than 1 foot in diameter. Okay, so we're talking about the eyes here. They're a giant squidaire, among the largest of any living creature. The larger the eye, the better to detect light. So it's used to detect light, which is scarce in deep and dark water. Okay, because when you go farther down, it gets darker. Okay, giant squid have 8 arms and 2 tentacles. The inside of both are lined with hundreds of suction cups. They, ringed with sharp, fiery, serrated circles of chitin. Okay, and the combined gripping action of the suckers, so they had grip together, and their pointy teeth attaches to the squid and the prey. The base of both of the tentacles and all of the arms join in single parrot-like beak, which shreds food with the aid of the radula. So that is a tongue with tiny file-edged teeth. Okay, and remember, we were talking about this gigantic squid, and if I were to make an inference myself, I would assume that this giant squid is the one that's on the cover. Okay, all right, or maybe even this one. This is a great example, right? So it has the 2 tentacles, it has all of the 8 arms here, it's got that giant eye that can see into light, especially when they go deeper and darker down into the waters, because there's not a lot of light down there. So this gives a great depiction of that giant squid. Okay. All right, so we're going to get into part 1, bon voyage, right? So good voyage, that's what that means. So before we begin, if you have any questions about any of those sections, please let me know, because we will be beginning Luther, and I will be, of course, reading this to you. But one of the things that I definitely want to point out is that all of this information is clearly important. Why do I say that this is important? Because I gave it to you way before we even start, right? So we get all this background information of all of these people. So obviously we're going to come in contact with all of them. And one of the things that seem to be repeated through all of them is Grace, right? So some way, shape, or form, they're tied to Grace and her family members. Right? And notice on that first page, the first person we're introduced to is Marty. And then here in the Cryptid Hunters, we're starting off with Marty, right? And of course, we find out that that's Grace's cousin. And then, of course, there's Grace and all of these people that tend to be involved with her life, right? And a majority of these people are her cousins, her mother, her father, and all of her father and mother's partners and their cooks and chefs and everyone that's around. And that's very important when we get into the story. Why, you may ask? Well, one, it gives us already that background knowledge, which is always introduced in the beginning part of any plot, which is considered the introduction. So this is really, really, really important. Okay? All right. Well, thank you for listening, and get ready for chapter 1, which is Luther.